So, hello everyone to another weekly edition of the Ubuntu Community Team Q&A. I'm David Planella from the Canonical Community Team, and we've got Nicholas Kax with us today, also from the Canonical Ubuntu Community Team. And we're here to answer all of your questions, essentially, on Ubuntu open source and anything that you can think that doesn't take us to do any technical support, for which there are other better channels for this. Essentially, the way this works is that we've got a live feed that you're probably seeing now. It seems some people on IRC are confirming and saying hi. So, hi everyone. And if you've got any questions, feel free to prepend them with question in capital letters, and then that will make it easier for us to spot them and to give you the answers that we can. And before we start, I want to talk a bit about the things that are coming up this week, mainly the online summit. And Nick, perhaps we can talk a bit later on about the quality documentation. I know that you've been working at this, and we've got quite a lot of quality goodness and tutorials in there. But yeah, perhaps we can actually take some of the first questions. It seems that Akiva is a bit impatient, so I think we can just start with those. He's asking, are there any issues with systemd so far? He's referring to the migration from Upstart, the init system that Ubuntu used to have, to systemd to align to with what Debian, our upstream, uses. We migrated to that. So far, I haven't heard of any issues. I know that on the day of the actual migration, when the switch was flicked, there were some hiccups, but that was like the development release. So far, I haven't heard anything like as in terms of issues going on. But having said that, I'm not following the day-to-day of systemd. So perhaps, Nick, do you know a bit more? You're more on the testing side of things. Has anything exploded?
There was some. I thought it was kind of lovely. Of course, folks who care and are concerned about their startup systems want to play with them and want to have the fastest possible startup. So there was talk about if systemd was as quick as Upstart or vice versa. If there had been a regression in boot up time. Some people were claiming that it used to be a little faster with Upstart. Other people saying systemd helped out. So it would be interesting to sort of check that out. I know Martin actually was. I need to bug him again. He was talking about doing a session at UOS, talking about how things have changed. So if anyone has used like a boot chart in the past to see what processes are starting on their boot and to try and optimize their boot times, I know some of that has changed now under systemd. But otherwise, no issues I've actually really heard of that would cause a lot of pain. As David said, most of that pain actually did happen during the development release. So for those of you who were helping us test and woke up to some broken machines a couple weekends, thank you. That was lovely. I know there was several nice little bugs that got fixed. So for the actual release, no. And like I said, hopefully most users didn't notice the change. That was kind of the goal.
Excellent. All right, so another question from Akiva. So again, on the topic of systemd, is systemd on the phone yet? As far as I know, it's on Vivid, but it's not yet on the Utopic images. But again, I think, Nick, I'll have to forward that question to you, so as you're more familiar with it.
We should inherit systemd on the phone at the same time we switch to Well, see, my guess is actually it probably won't happen until we switch images to whatever 15.10 will be. But I could be wrong on that. As far as I know, the plan was to retain Upstart for the Vivid image. I could be wrong. I will say that it obviously it is coming. it just remains to be seen. I would expect it to show up in the development images this cycle. And I don't know, like I said, that decision was changed, but originally it was at the 1504 with Upstart. So
cool. All right.
Akiva is asking, yes, talking about 1510. He wants to know what the name is. That's a good question. I don't know, and unless David has some magical connection to Mark's brain, I don't think he knows either. Mark's not told, not decided, or at least not told anyone that he's decided. So that yet remains a mystery. I know we've been kind of spoiled the past couple of years because he's often done it release week, which has been amazing. But before that, I remember we would have to wait a little bit. So we'll wait a little bit and see what happens. Wait for that blog post to hit and see what the W name would be.
Any suggestions on IRC, or well, any thoughts on what it could be, or any suggestions what you think it should be? We've heard quite a lot already. It's always a fun time, just before the name is announced.
Oh yeah, and it is W. I was just thinking that you weren't correct, Akiva, that it was W, but yes. You know, we have it finally happened. We have an issue with W, seeing as we had Wardy being #1. So we already have a W release. This would be the second.
Yeah, back to Wardy.
Back to Wardy. It's very interesting. So yeah, it's sort of a loaded letter for the first time. We actually are going to duplicate. So exciting.
Excellent. So on IRC, there are suggestions of wobbly windows, Woskly Wabbit, Watless Wabbit, Wacky Wombat, and I'm sure there'll be some more creative ones in a minute.
Wombat. I like wombat as an animal. That's cool.
All right. Okay, so next question from Dragon77. When you switch to the Snappy-based Ubuntu image, will there be some sort of legacy support for dep and click packages inside that image? Do you have any contingency plans for the applications that will not switch to Snappy? Okay, that's quite a lot. These are really good questions, actually. There's quite a lot to be explained for those. So taking the first one, essentially, the Snappy Core Ubuntu images are a new technology on their own. So in principle, there's no legacy support for dep inside those images. That doesn't mean that that separately from those images, there won't be a dep distribution. That's not the case. There will be still a dep distribution in the same way as we've got it now. But for implementing the convergence plan, we're going to use the same technologies that we've been using for the phone, and converging also on the tools and technologies, as in using Snappy for that. So the updates essentially will be based on the incremental updates that we've seen for the phone, and not Debian based for those Snappy Core images. In terms of click, one thing to notice is that click packages and snap packages are pretty similar in terms of the technology of packaging. They are very, by design, they're very simple packaging technologies, so that it's easier for developers to create them. They are not they are not based on dependencies. Again, for simplicity, and essentially we will soon be seeing click and snap, or rather click migrating to snap. So in terms of click and snap packages, there shouldn't be any compatibility issues once they are essentially merged. In terms of dep, it will be a separate distribution.
Right. And so to answer his second part of his question, David, I pasted a link to Michael Terry's Deb to Snap. So he's talking about contingency issues for applications that won't switch. So if that does happen and you do want to otherwise use a Snappy-based image, you can utilize tools like Deb to Snap to create a Snappy package from a Debian package. I used it to, I played around with it a little bit. Obviously, it's a proof of concept, but I think it's going to evolve a bit beyond that, and it will be interesting to see to what extent we see things like that, taking Debian packages and making them Snappy packages. So, yeah.
Cool. And if you want to know more, we'll invite you to join the next Ubuntu Online Summit, which is happening next week. And we've got a dedicated track for conversions to talk about essentially what it will take to have the conversion desktop starting as of now. There's quite a lot of overlap in the technologies. So we've got a dedicated track for Ubuntu Core, where the topics will be more Snappy based, but you'll see, I'll say, overlap between the two tracks. So there's lots of topics that touch both of those tracks. So essentially, stay tuned to what's happening on UDS next week, and I'm just going to send you a link to it. So if you go to uds.ubuntu.com, essentially, yes, Andrew has it.
Andrew just asked.
Thank you. All right, cool. So I'm going to paste another link with the announcement.
Yes, but David's correct. We have a whole track, so we're going to have several sessions talking about all of this stuff. The question you asked is great, and it'll certainly come up next week, and we'll talk about it because it'll be interesting. Obviously, we don't want to, nor do we intend to sort of abandon anything or to drop support. Debian packages obviously will still be the basis for everything that we do, even in a Snappy world. So. What's next?
I think
Sassy says, can I know when Ubuntu phone will be launched in India and how can I access?
I think for this one, any questions that have to do with launching in a particular market or launching in a particular hardware is something that that's also dependent on the manufacturers, and something that we announce when we've got an agreement with them. What we can say is that we're actively looking at launching Ubuntu in other markets rather than Europe. Other than Europe, as the BQ phone is targeted for now, and also Asia, for which the Meizu phone is targeted. So. All I can say is that yes, we're looking into it, and you should stay tuned for the announcement coming out from Ubuntu.com or insights.ubuntu.com, or essentially any Ubuntu news channel.
Yes, and things like that are wonderful to send along to BQ and to Meizu and let them know that you want their devices. So. That's good feedback for them.
Cool. All right. So next question from Veribaka. How do we handle the Snappy packages in a command line? What's the aptitude apt equivalent? One thing to bear in mind is that there are command line tools to manage Snappy packages. We shouldn't probably be calling them equivalents, as I said before. Snappy packages, because of their simplicity of design, intentional, have got no dependency, so there's not the same dependency handling as aptitude or apt. However, there are a range of commands to manage the packages that you can install or remove from your Ubuntu core image. I think off the top of my head, you can use snappy install name of package to install a package, and there's probably a remove or uninstall equivalent. Essentially, if you go to developer.ubuntu.com/snappy, you'll find a link to the Snappy tour, which tells you more about the comments or the most essential comments that you should know when you start with Snappy. But yeah, I mean, to summarize, essentially there are tools that are not 100% equivalent, but yeah, things like snappy install will get you started and getting things directly from the software store.
Indeed.
All right. So Nick, I think next one is for you from Akiva Think.
Akiva wants to know if I can grow a curly mustache. I recently shaved. I had quite a beard going, but it's gone now. I don't know about a curly mustache. I'm not sure how curled I could get it. That would take a while. Never tried. So I would say no, because UOS is next week. Sadly, it's impossible for me to get a curly mustache by then. Even if I wanted to.
Unless someone sends him one.
Yes, I will be happy to wear a curly mustache on camera if I had one. That would be fun.
All right. So Akiva Thinkpad is saying, or is asking rather, Microsoft said it could see itself open sourcing Windows in the future. Did hell freeze over? I don't know. I'd very much like to see that, actually, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But I mean, just seeing the talk about it, I think is something really, really positive.
I saw the announcement that they what was it? Their open source tech lab or something was re-merging with Microsoft again. I don't know if that's where you saw that quote from. I didn't see anything specific about open sourcing Windows, but I think a lot of operating system vendors have sort of, I mean, we look at Android. Google gives away Android. Apple has given away recently the updates for their OS. Obviously, Ubuntu has always been free as in beer, which is amazing. And Windows is also talking about now giving away Windows 10 as a free upgrade. And so people are sort of seeing these systems as platforms for monotonizing through other ways. So they don't necessarily directly have to sell the OS. Instead, they can sell services and software on top of it. So if that happened, that's why I would see that it would happen, that they would see the value in having Windows everywhere and then selling software and services on top of that, and just wanting a ubiquitous Windows platform. And if they feel that open sourcing would achieve that, then they might go for it. Obviously, that's my own take on their business perspective, but open sourcing Windows would be cool. Obviously, the more open source software there is out there, the better. So I would obviously happily welcome it. And yeah, that is maybe quite amazing for people who lived through the 90s, where there was essentially one platform to rule them all, and that was Windows. We've come a long way since then, and I think we're better off for it.
So Akiva is asking again, do either of you have the BQ phone? Any thoughts on it? So yes, essentially, I mean, let me just unlock it. So essentially, I mean, I started my Ubuntu phone journey with an Nexus 4. That was a development device, which I've still got somewhere on my table. And I've been using it actually dual booting with Android. This was my yeah. I mean, I had my normal phone in there, and it was just at the beginning when we announced dual boot, and I wanted to test it. And I wanted to test obviously Ubuntu on the phone. But yeah, it's remained pretty much. Even though I've had my main SIM card in there, it's remained pretty much a development phone, meaning that I've got developer mode enabled, I've got packages installed, things have broken sometimes. So it's been, I mean, it's been both a placing experience and also a bit of a pain sometimes when things broke during development or caused by me, essentially. But just recently, when we announced the phone, I bought my own BQ device because I wanted to have the experience of a stable phone, essentially, and use it as my daily phone. and essentially it's been really good. I've got no complaints about it. I mean, obviously I knew what I was getting, and I was familiar with the interface and with everything. Comparing it to the Nexus 4, I really like the fact that like scopes are really fluid, and yeah, I mean, it feels like a really compact phone. I like the size. It's quality. It's well built. So yeah, I mean, I love my Ubuntu phone. What should I say?
I also had a development version of the Krillin for a little while, and so not quite the same as what David has, but I also enjoyed just the speed and the smoothness, as opposed to running the development builds on the Nexus 4 for so long. Getting a purpose-built device was just really nice. All those little things were sort of all smoothed out, and it was lovely to use. I also liked it, like the size and the design of the phone itself better than the Nexus 4. I thought there was a little more aesthetic appeal to the device, for what it's worth.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I've got all the apps that I need for my own purposes, and so I'm happy with it as well. Okay.
Ian asked a lovely loaded question. He says, "When will desktop Ubuntu finish converting to Python 3?" Never.
I think we actually have a session, right, at the summit.
I don't know if we. This might be the first US in a while if we don't have a session talking about Python 3 conversion. I will say that recently, maybe within the last 6 months, I'll say, at least I became aware of it. One of the biggest issues was a lot of the Launchpad tools and Bazaar and all the other stuff we're still using Python 2, and that's using Python 3 now. Launchpad did awesome, and so that enabled a lot of things to migrate over. I don't know what other major blockers exist, but I will say that obviously Python 2 has carried on probably a bit longer than anyone suspected, and they supported it longer than meaning with the backporting and 2.7 and all that stuff. They really kept it alive for much longer than I suppose people originally thought that they would do. So I don't know. Obviously, no one knows the answer to that question, but I will say we're obviously a lot closer. And I don't know. I guess maybe we should propose a session if there isn't one. Because I don't know the status.
We've got a session, but it's geared towards the LTS, so that might also answer the question somehow.
Yes. Okay. There it is. Yep. Python 3 only on the default install.
Yeah.
Yes. The great part is, of course, because now they're talking about Python 3.5, because they haven't transitioned to the Python 3 default, but now already we're falling behind on the rest of it. Pretty good.
Cool. All right, so it seems actually we've got a lot of questions, so we should probably go quickly through them. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought.
Andrew asks about US sessions next week, and he wants to know what we're looking forward to the most.
Yes.
Personally, I'm helping out with the show and tell track. So, and I love demos. I'm a visual person. So probably any of those sessions I'm looking forward to. Definitely there's Ken Van Dyne's giving a cool Content Hub feature demo. Akiva has cool autopilot plugin that he's been working on. He's going to demo and show off. And so those are the cool things for the phone. And then, of course, I love Unity 8. And so there's going to be a Unity 8 desktop mode demo that will also be cool. So those are my three probably favorite sessions that I'm looking forward to the most.
Cool. All right. You raised the bar in there. Okay. I mean, I'm essentially looking forward to any session on the convergence track. I think this will be something that, or this is something that people have been looking forward to quite a lot of time. And it'll be good to have those discussions, especially because many of the things are still, as we're laying out the plans for the technologies, many of the things are still up for discussion, and it will be a good place to get together and laying out the plans. I'm looking forward also to the Unity 8 in desktop mode demo that Nick was mentioning. On the community track, I'm looking forward to the session on UbuCons as well, especially if we've got a couple lined up. And sorry, I should probably say what an UbuCon is. So essentially, UbuCons are physical events that community members organize across the world, and they are generally 1 day or 3 day conferences in which bring the old spirit of the presential UDSs. If you've ever attended one, I think it's a great initiative from as a community members. It is something that we should support from the Ubuntu project and from Canonical. And I'd like to have a discussion essentially on how we can do that and promote the UDSs, UbuCons around the globe.
Awesome. Akiva asks a follow-up question about UOS, and he says, "Will Mark Shuttleworth be at Ubuntu Online Summit for another Q&A?"
So this is still to be confirmed. Mark might be able to join us on the day before UOS, so please stay tuned to any announcement, and we'll make sure that is widely publicized once we know the details.
Yes. We know Siwas. Wow, that's quite an IRC nick. I love it. He asks, "How will Ubuntu 15.10 be named?"
That's right.
We talked about this. Yeah, we talked about this before. Nicely done. Mark's going to pick a name, obviously, and when he picks, we'll know when you guys know. And check out his blog. You'll see a post, I'm sure, that will hit the newswire, and you'll be informed when that happens. Dragon77 says, "When we'll be able to package Snappy packages from the SDK?" Good question.
Yeah, we've had several discussions on it. I know that the SDK team has been working on improving Snappy support or adding the foundations for Snappy support to the SDK. I don't have actual timelines other than saying this is something that the team are working in. But what I would suggest, and again, this is one of our most popular, traditionally one of our most popular UOS sessions. We have an Ubuntu SDK team roadmap and an Ubuntu SDK team Q&A session at the online summit. So I'd suggest you to go to summit.ubuntu.com and then subscribe for those sessions.
I'll link them in the chat in case anyone is interested in doing that.
Cool.
They are.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I should mention as well is that, first thing to do to participate at UOS, there's different things that you can do, or different ways in which you can participate. Rather, if you go to uds.ubuntu.com, you'll find a link to register to attend. There you'll be able to see, once you've registered, you'll be able to register. Sorry, once you've registered for the event, you'll be able to subscribe to sessions that you're interested in, so that they appear prominently on your schedule, and you don't miss them if you're interested in joining them. But yeah, I think it's important for anyone interested in a session to subscribe as well, also to give the presenters an idea of the audience. But for anyone joining in, it will be useful also to have a reminder of the sessions they're interested in. And to go to the actual steps. Once you've registered, you'll be taken to summit.ubuntu.com, and then there you'll have links. You'll see links by date, by track, or by room, where you can see anything that's going on during the week. One way to do this is to go to all meetings, for example. I'm just going to post a link in here, and then you can click on each one of the sessions that to see more context on what they are all about, other than the title. And then what you can do as well is to browse by date. So, for example, you can see here on this link what's scheduled for Tuesday. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, exactly like
I was ahead of you.
Like Nikas just linked us to. So yeah, remember to watch the schedule to see any sessions that you're interested in and register. You can still also submit sessions. If you go to uds.ubuntu.com, you'll see the instructions. It's really easy to submit a session. So if you're interested in implementing something or in discussing something for Ubuntu, then you should feel free to register the session as well, and of course attend and lead the session.
Okay. Ian asked another great question. He says, what is your single favorite feature of Snappy? So for me, if I have to pick one, I like the ability to roll back. I like having the read-only system that I cannot break. I broke apps before. It has been fun. Fun. I've done bad things, and it's warned me, and I've done them anyway. When I was new, I did things like uninstall all bootable kernels, stuff like that. I've done bad things. I've also done bad things on accident, and I've also wanted to sort of have the undo button. It's sort of the best way to learn. It's like, oops, please take me back. And so having a rollback feature is just really amazing, and it's something that I've been looking forward to probably for some time. So that's probably the single biggest feature for me.
Cool. All right. Yeah, mine is somehow related to that one as well. I mean, I particularly like the fact that there's such a clear separation between the platform or the core of the system and anything that goes on top. It being either frameworks or applications, so that both the system and the ecosystem on top are clearly separated. And also there's a layer of security through them with App Armor and App Isolation. So this is something that I've already enjoyed very much on the phone. Also the fact of being able to send applications to the store and having them published in a matter of minutes. I think that's really, really cool. And I think this is something I particularly am interested in embedded devices, in internet-enabled devices. And I think that this opens like a whole range of possibilities to create cool apps for those devices without having to worry about updates, upgrades, dependencies, and so on. Just focus on writing your application. I think that's really cool.
Ian has another great question. It's sort of a follow-up. He says, what feature of Snappy do you worry people won't understand? For me, I think it's security. I kind of see this already. People look at Snappy packages and they get concerned about app developers having to take care of dependencies and security implications around that. And so I feel like what they might be missing is the security model around Snappy, which is just so amazing. So since we've sort of sandboxed everything, and I won't try and take Jamie from the security teams. I won't try and diatribe on like he might be able to, but essentially this has been well thought out. The security model allows us to isolate things so that when, not if, an application developer, any sort of developer is falls behind and doesn't provide a timely update to a dependency or to their application that has some sort of security hole in it, the idea is that Snappy takes care of that for you and that your system is safe despite what you might be running. And it takes care of that in numerous ways. One of which is that, like I said, applications are sandboxed, so they don't have control of the ability to do things. The second is that the system is read-only, and so there's only so much damage you can do on a read-only system, so that's limited. And then third, you are able to roll things back, like, as I said, which is sort of one of my favorite features. But the fact that you can just undo whatever happens sort of helps out as well. And so I know Jamie has a whole, I think you can go look on the wiki. I'll go look for a link. He has a nice write-up for people who might be really curious to hear about all the nitty-gritty details. But I think security is probably the biggest piece for me that people will sort of fail to understand.
All right. Yeah, I mean, for me, it would be, and I think this will be addressed not only at UDS, but also in the upcoming weeks. I think one thing that has generated quite a lot, both of interest and some confusion as well, has been the concept of frameworks, as in frameworks being the layer between the system and the applications, and frameworks being something that can contain an essential part of the platform that provides a service for applications. And there's been quite a lot of analogies with libraries, for example, and how applications could share the content of frameworks. I think there's quite a lot of potential in there, but we're still seeing. I mean, we've just released the first Snappy version, actually. So I think, well, the direction is clearly set. We still have to see some work happening on definitions of frameworks in the first frameworks and the tools to manage frameworks. One of the coolest things that I've seen lately has been the Mike Sterry's work on packaging, providing a mere framework as a stepping stone for having the phone running on Snappy, and the desktop also running on Snappy. So that I picked that one, frameworks.
All right, good questions, guys. See what's next. Akiva is changing the subject, and he's wondering where the 25 million figure for Ubuntu users came from.
That's a tricky one, Akiva. You tend to ask the trickiest one, but these are all good questions. So essentially, I mean, I wouldn't particularly worry too much about numbers at this time. I think the important fact is that Ubuntu is used by millions and millions of users. There are some estimations internally as the number of OEMs installed, also registered users, and so on, and those who sent stats to installation counters. Some of the figures have been taken from those estimations, but as I say, I wouldn't worry too much about numbers at this point, other than saying that Ubuntu is very, very popular. Ubuntu is used by millions and millions of users across the globe. All right. Buenos Aires is asking, can we install multiple versions of the same app on Snappy and run them in this at the same time? I don't think you can, actually, if they work the same way as Click apps, because essentially you always get the latest version from the store, and I would think that.
Yeah, actually. Yeah. I mean, if they're named, if they're exactly the same application, they would really need to have a different namespace. I don't think you can have something with the same exact namespace. So if for some reason you wanted to do that, they would need to have a slightly different namespace. Much in the same way it's done today on Ubuntu. You can run hence the evolution of things like the ng packages, the next generation packages, something -ng to have the old and the new version, that sort of thing. So you'd have to do the same thing. You would need to be a slightly different namespace. It couldn't be exactly the same. Nothing much asks, is there a possible deb to click package program that exists? The answer is yes. I linked it earlier. I'll link it again. It's called deb to snap. You can find it on GitHub, and it's something that Michael Terry put together. And I imagine that will prove useful as we move forward for people. Next question. Dragon77 says, will there still be a version of Ubuntu with Unity 8 that has deb and click? I'll let David answer that.
Yeah, I mean, first, as far as click is concerned, I think it will depend when the migration to Snap happens. So I would think rather than having a version with click, we'll have a version with, or rather, there will be a desktop version with snaps and snappy. In terms of having a deb distribution, as we said, this is not going away. What is going away right now is the intermediate step that we had, where we published ISOs for Unity 8 based on deb. But essentially, we'll have the snappy version and the .deb version of the distribution for desktop. But yeah, I mean, what I wanted to say as well is like do stay tuned to the discussions next week, as some of these things still need figuring out, and in those sessions you'll get to see the nitty-gritty details essentially. Ask your questions and contribute as well if you want to participate. So yeah, I mean,
that is a good point. Yeah, that these are still ongoing discussions that we'll be having at UOS. So you should show up and talk about them. Ask your questions. That's a good point.
All right. Okay.
Ian asks, other than Snappy and Unity 8, what other exciting changes are in the store for 1604? Or what exciting changes are in store, not in the store? Wants to know what's coming out.
Yeah, are these not exciting enough?
Obviously, UOS is a great place to find out about other exciting changes that are coming. There's lots of stuff on the phone. Pretty much many of the show and tell tracks are talking about new stuff that's coming and demoing it off. So I would say check that out. But yes, as David said, the Snappy and Unity 8 and all the changes around that are probably some of the biggest stuff that's going on.
I think one important thing to bear in mind as well is that these changes will require quite a lot of work. It's just as well as they've not been planned just for the next release, but like on the road to 1604, as in for the next couple of releases. So it will take quite a lot of effort to implement them. I'm sure along the way we'll have other exciting features as well, but I think these two will be, or rather, the convergence story will be the biggest one. I mean, it will be a huge change also in the way we build Ubuntu and in the way Ubuntu is delivered to the desktop and to the phone. So these are pretty huge changes that will take quite a while until the next LTS to figure out and to implement.
Okay. Next question. Is there any plans for a Launchpad update? So it's getting long in the foot. Long in the foot is an interesting phrase for me.
All right. Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, David, if you want to answer that.
I was going to say, so I think the best thing would be to ask for a particular feature you're interested in Launchpad. I mean, in Launchpad, they do continuous releases as well. They do continuous integration, essentially. So Launchpad is essentially like a rolling release as well. So these updates do happen. I think rather, I say it'd be good to know if you're interested in a particular feature that you've been waiting on, and then we can perhaps take it from there.
Yeah, Launchpad is still being updated, if that's the question. And I know the biggest, most visible feature that recently happened was the diff changes, so that we could have we could comment on diffs and do inline commenting. And for each revision on merge proposal. That was cool. I like that. Next question: is there a date for Snappy packages to hit the desktop next ISO?
I think on this one we'll have to forward you again to the plans next week. So we don't have a timeline as of right now today, but we will have plans laid out next week. So you'll learn more at the Ubuntu Online Summit.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. Let's see. Akiva wants to know who came up with the origami aesthetic. He says it's brilliant. And I think he's referring to the little competition that was it the design team or was it just Ubuntu guys in general came out for the origami?
So the origami came from the design team.
Yeah.
The whole Suru concepts and the origami wallpapers, background, and also tied to the launch of the phone with the nice boxes that some of the first people who received the phone got to unpack. And also I'm just trying to think where else we've got origami theme. Yeah, many of the icons for the core apps and pre-installed applications. I also like it very much. So I think it's something to praise the design team for just another awesome design concept.
All right, I'm going to try and rapid fire through some of these so we don't miss any. Akiva wants to know, is the HUD implemented in Unity 8? And are either of you running it full time? As far as I know, Akiva, the HUD in Unity 8 on the desktop is, there's still some design, I think, that needs to happen there. And I'm not running it full time, although I wanted to be by the end of this cycle, but a lot of things have changed, including, you know, the how it's going to be delivered. So that has sort of thrown a wrench in things, but it will certainly still be on my plate for this cycle to try and be running it full time by the end of the cycle. So we'll see.
All right, and yeah, I mean, just to answer the second part of the question, I'm not yet running it full time yet, but I'll switch it as soon as I can. I'm still on 1410 on my laptop. I'm running Vivid or 1504 on the desktop, and I'm thinking of switching to Unity 8 on my laptop as soon as I can upgrade.
All right, so Akiva then asks, would you consider BTRFS stable enough yet? Do either of you run it? I would consider it stable enough. I don't run it, but I know of some other folks that do. The only thing that it does not do, at least last I checked, and it might still be experimental, is boot. So you don't want BTRFS on your boot partition, but otherwise, go for it, as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, that's me. So, but I think it is pretty stable, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it other than actually other people. It seems to be quite popular as a question on these Q&As, but I don't personally use it. I don't tend to hack around much with file systems and essentially things that can eat your files. So I prefer apps. Okay, so. Lukewarm Water is asking, do you think using something as friendly as QML as the main language in Unity 8 will help increase the number of people who can help shape the Unity 8 shell itself compared to Unity 7? That's actually a good question and a good view as well. I think it will definitely be easier. I think we've seen more interest in people contributing to the ecosystem rather than the platform itself, but we have had contributions in the past in Unity 8, and I think having a stable distribution with Unity 8 included will make it much easier for people to fix bugs and to get involved as well.
Yes, I think that's a good conversation to have next week, talking about what sort of developer lifecycle could exist for Unity 8. I think it can be much better than Unity 7. So I'm guessing you could probably, in the same way now that you can run a development version of Unity 8 inside a container and not have to break your existing desktop. Cool stuff like that will enable, I think, easier development. Not to mention it's QML.
Okay, cool. So Ian Weiser is asking another really, really good question, actually.
Excellent.
If you had to give advice to your Ubuntu using grandmother about all of the changes with Snappy and Unity 8 coming, what would you say? Wow. So I would say it won't break, it's secure, and it runs everywhere.
Yeah. Not much to say. I think I would agree. Yeah, it's a lot more and more like an appliance that you just use, right? And it takes care of itself. Something you don't have to worry about. That's what I tell my grandmother. Use it and don't worry about it.
Cool. All right, so we've got John O'Bacon.
John O'Bacon has a question
on the audience today. So he's asking from the other side of the fence this time around. So John is saying, I saw Scott K's blog post about US, and in the comments there was a discussion about whether US has value bringing people together, or whether independent hangouts outside of US are better. What do you guys think? I think it's not, I would say it's not either or. I think there's quite a lot of value in having a dedicated event where there's a lot of content around Ubuntu to generate excitement and to bring focus on a particular topic or on a particular set of topics. So essentially, I still see the value in the online summit. However, that doesn't take the fact that that independent hangouts can be scheduled as well. I think it's about each team whether they prefer to do things outside US or inside US. I mean, I think for visibility as well, I would still suggest US, but I do understand sometimes that it's difficult for people to have to find the time where they can all participate. Also, some people have also given us the feedback that Hangouts don't really work for them, and they prefer IRC. And in some cases, we've tried to accommodate that at the US itself. I think essentially, I'm not sure if this is the answer that you were looking for, but I think there's value in both. I would suggest US, I say, for the visibility it gives, for rallying people around an event and getting them excited about participating. But that shouldn't exclude if a team wants to organize an event outside the US to do it there.
For me, the biggest thing is that US brings is communication between everybody. So in speaking to some of the flavors, I was encouraging those teams to, even though that they might not actually use US for planning directly, and they can plan on their own time, and that's great. Every team should sort of do what they need to do in order to manage their own workflow and plan their work and all that stuff. But for me, US is about sharing what they're doing. So Ubuntu is a lot of these disparate communities, and we're all under this giant umbrella, which is amazing. And I think US is our opportunity to all get together and talk about what it is we've done and what we're doing. And so that was I was really excited by the show and tell track, because that's essentially what you get to do, kind of show off what you've been doing, and if nothing else, at least demo some things. But communicating with what's going on, what's happening in the KDE world, what's happening with Kubuntu, what's happening with Ubuntu, Ubuntu, all these different things, what's happening over with Ubuntu Women, what's happening inside of the docs team. I want to know these things, even though I don't necessarily get to attend all the planning meetings, or even that my input should necessarily be hugely considered because I'm not an active part of all of those teams. I'd like to know what's going on. And so I think that's, to me, the biggest draw, is sort of being able to get that nice little snapshot summary and hear from other teams and from other places inside of Ubuntu. And then the flip side of that is perhaps then the value for those teams in sharing is that when everyone shares a course, everyone gets that information. But on top of that, you can attract new people who didn't necessarily realize that there was a Ubuntu women's team or a Docs team or a quality team, and showing and sharing talking about what you're doing, you might get some feedback, or you might even get some new contributors. So I think that's really the big value for me in UOS is communication. Even if it's not internal to your team, it's important to the rest of the Ubuntu ecosystem that you communicate.
Cool. All right, we've got about 1 minute left, but since we've started a few minutes late, I think we can take the rest of the questions. We've got 4 or 5 left.
Sure.
Chuak was asking question, is the Ubuntu i18N system left behind the general improvements in Ubuntu development? So for those of you not familiar with i18N, that's the short form for calling the way applications are internationalized in Ubuntu, and what makes it possible to translate Ubuntu to almost any language. I would say, to answer the question, I would say no. The i18N system is not being left behind. You'll notice that for the phone, right from the start, when the SDK and the UI toolkit was designed, the i18N functions were in there. And a testament to that is the fact that the phone is actually translated into 40 languages already, which is pretty. I think this is a pretty huge achievement, bearing in mind that it is the first ever release of a completely new system.
High five, translators.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, absolutely. And essentially, that's more or less the same number of languages that we've got translated on the desktop. So that's a big achievement. And the technology behind that, behind internationalization, have made that possible. All right, Akiba ThinkPad question: which former community do you miss most and wish would return someday? Well, that's a tricky one as well, because we're involved somehow in many different communities. I mean, I'm not that much involved in translations anymore, but I'm still involved. So I wouldn't say I miss it, but that was one of the communities that I was, and I'm still passionate about. I'm not sure. I mean, perhaps that's the one that I would pick, but it's not also really answering the question because I haven't really left. Okay, so let's.
Yeah.
Have either so Akiba ThinkPad is asking, have either of you been programming in Golang yet? Thoughts? I have programmed in Golang, but it was a while ago. I think in the state it is right now for in the context of the SDK, it has got quite a lot of value in for those people who don't want to use C++ for scopes, for example, but they still want the flexibility of C++ and a modern programming language. So this would be my thoughts, very, very compressed. And I think this applies as well for QML apps, where you can have this separation between a UI created in QML, which is a fully declarative language, and then you can have the backend in Go. I think there's also quite a lot of value of using Go in there, but I think we have to do some more work in making sure that the tools are up to date and are up to the same standard as the rest of the SDK. So there's still some work to be done as well. So that'd be my second part of thoughts. Okay, shall we take 2 more questions, Nick, and then wrap it up? Sure.
Looks like Chris is asking, what's the advantage of Ubuntu Phone over Android? Real quick version for me of that is completely open hackability. I can play with it. I can interact with the community, and then I like the ecosystem better. Security and all the Ubuntu goodness at my fingertips. And Akiva asks, what IRC client do you use? That one's simple. I use XChat, although I sometimes use WeChat as well. And I've been increasingly looking at adopting some sort of HTML5 IRC chat client rather than using a IRC bouncer, which is what I use now. So if you have a recommendation, I'm happy to hear it.
Cool. All right. And then I use XChat GNOME. I've been using it ever since I started using Ubuntu. Actually, I tried XChat, but at some point I found, actually, it was when XChat GNOME was starting to be developed. I don't know when it was. I just switched to them and haven't changed since. All right, so okay, I think we're done for today. I think so. All right then. So I think the only thing left is to thank everyone for the really good questions. Thanks a lot for watching us every week. I think this really it's really important for us and for the rest of the community to have this space where we can ask and answer questions and to have some feedback as well. So again, thanks a lot for joining us, for the good questions, and I would say see you next week.
You guys. Cheers. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.